The 2020 NFL regular season is over now. With tons of ups and downs, plenty of good games, bad games, a battle for the number one pick, battles for playoff spots, and so much more, this season was a wild one, and it was very enjoyable. But now we're on to the best part of the season, the playoffs. A dogfight between now 14 teams for a Super Bowl ring and a Vince Lombardi trophy. The stage is now set. Wildcard weekend matchups are set up with plenty of great matchups ready to be played. For the first time in 18 years, the Cleveland Browns will play in the playoffs. Congratulations, Browns fans. It's finally your chance. I will use each team's strengths and weaknesses to fully examine each matchup. I will point out the most crucial matchup within each game, and I will decide who has the best chance to win each one, all the way up until February 7th in Tampa, Florida. Let's get right into it. The first game on Wildcard Weekend is when the 7-seed Indianapolis Colts will go to Buffalo to take on the 2-seed AFC East champion Buffalo Bills. The Bills are hot right now, although the Bills franchise hasn't won a playoff game since 1995, so any Bills fan under the age of 25 has never seen the Bills win a playoff game. Well, with this matchup, I think that's going to change. The Buffalo Bills have been on absolute fire, and their quarterback, Josh Allen, is having a historical season for the Bills. Their passing attack is one of the best in the league, with the third most passing yards per game this season, behind only the Kansas City Chiefs and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, two of the best passing attacks in the league. The Bills are on fire, and it's going to be fun to see how far they can make it into the playoffs this year. I don't think the Colts defense, particularly their secondary, will be able to hold up against the Bills' insane passing attack. On the other side of the ball, although the Colts might be able to run the ball fairly well on Buffalo, as Buffalo's run defense hasn't been the best this season, they've given up the 7th most average yards per carry this season, but I still think Indy's not going to be able to keep up with Buffalo's pass attack, even with their run game, since their own pass attack isn't good enough to come back from a deficit they'll most likely face when they're playing the Bills, so I'm going to take Buffalo in this game. The best matchup to watch in this game would probably be T.Y. Hilton versus Tre'Davious White. Even though White probably has the better of this matchup by a lot, it's still going to be interesting to see what Hilton, as an experienced veteran, can do to combat White's shutdown cornerback play. The next game on the slate for Saturday is when the 6-seed Rams will go to Seattle for the second week in a row to play the 3-seed NFC West champion Seahawks in the NFC. A divisional rivalry on Wildcard Weekend, one of the couple we have going on. The Rams beat the Seahawks the first time they played, but then the Seahawks took care of business the second time around. It's going to kind of be like a tiebreaker game. It's going to be an interesting one to see. The Rams have one of the best defenses in the league. They have the number one scoring defense in the league, and they've allowed the least first downs per game this season. They also rank top 3 in several other categories on defense. The Rams' defense is undoubtedly elite, and I definitely think that they'll have the edge on that side of the ball. On the other side of the ball, the Seahawks' defense has been mediocre at best all season long. It's middle of the pack in a majority of defensive stats, as opposed to the Rams being at the top of most defensive stats. I'm going to give the edge to the Rams in this game. They're the more well-rounded team. Seattle has some more work to do. The matchup to watch here, quite predictably, is DK Metcalf versus Jalen Ramsey. It's a great matchup to watch, and it's going to be intense. These two have already faced twice this season. In the first matchup, Ramsey got the best of Metcalf, holding him to just 2 catches for 28 yards. In the second one, he still held him down pretty well, but he let up a little bit more, giving up 6 catches for 59 yards. At the end of the day, the Rams are a better team. Despite losing some games they should have won, I'm still taking the Rams here. The third game we have this weekend is the 5-seed Buccaneers facing the 4-seed NFC East champion Washington football team. This is going to be a very close game, I think. The Buccaneers have been on fire so far. They've averaged 37 points per game in their last 4 games, which is absolutely insane. However, they face a Washington defensive line that is, in my opinion, the best in the league. They have so much depth at that position, and their starting 4 is insane. They can get pressure with 4 and drop back all of their guys into coverage. The big question for me here is whether Brady and his receivers can get the ball out quick enough to combat that strong defensive line and pass rush. I think Washington's defensive line will get the best of that matchup, and they will get through to Brady enough times and get the win. On the other side of the ball, the Washington's key to victory will be to use quick throws. Statistically speaking, Washington's offense is significantly more successful when they get the ball out quick, especially with Alex Smith at QB. To help him, they're going to need to give him easy short throws to make. Screens, slants, hitches, those are going to be the key to their offensive success in this game. The matchup to watch in this game is in the trenches. Rookie pass rusher Chase Young versus rookie offensive tackle Tristan Wirfs. This will be a fun matchup to watch, so keep your eye on the right side of the line where Tristan Wirfs lines up and where Chase Young sometimes lines up. He switches sides, but when he is on that side of the line, it's going to be a fun matchup to watch. I got Washington with the huge upset in this game. Now the next day of wildcard games is on Sunday. The first one is where the Baltimore Ravens will take on the 4-seed AFC South champion Tennessee Titans. The last few times these teams have played, the Titans have gotten the best of the matchup. However, as of late, the Titans haven't been playing too well. They've been in a major slump. They got destroyed by the Green Bay Packers, and then they went on to struggle against the Texans, and they barely managed to squeak out the win in the last game of the season on that field goal that bounced off the upright and went in somehow. The Ravens, on the other hand, are hot right now. They've won their last 5 games straight, and they just ran for 400 yards against the Bengals, becoming the 4th team to ever do that in NFL history. Their rushing attack is on fire, and against the Titans' mediocre run defense, they should be able to run all over them. However, someone else is going to run all over the Ravens, and that someone is the king himself, Derrick Henry. Henry ran for over 2,000 yards this season, which is absolutely unheard of except with Hall of Fame legend running backs. The last person to ever do that was Adrian Peterson in 2012, and he won MVP that year. Here's the thing though, last week Derrick Henry did have a monster game, but the Titans still barely won. I think that even if the Ravens can't stop Henry, which they probably won't be able to do, they should still be able to pull out the win. The Ravens can simply outrush the Titans. It's reasonable, they just ran for 400 on the Bengals. The Titans in their slump and the Ravens on a winning spree, I'm taking the Ravens to win this one. The matchup to watch in this game, as I already kind of touched on, is Derrick Henry versus the Ravens run defense. It's going to be fun to see who will win that matchup this time. Derrick Henry's had it the last 2 times they played, but I think the Ravens are going to redeem themselves this time around. The next game in that weekend is the 7-seed Bears visiting the 2-seed NFC South champion New Orleans Saints. The Bears, in my opinion, they just don't deserve to be in the playoffs. They're not a good enough team this year, and they just lucked out that they made it in at 8-8. If they were in the AFC, they would definitely not have made the playoffs. The Dolphins in the AFC went 10-6 and didn't even make the playoffs, so I don't think the Bears deserve a playoff spot, but yet here we are. I think the Saints are going to cruise to a victory over the Bears here, especially if Kamara is going to be back for this game, which as of right now he is on pace to be. This will be an easy win for the Saints in my eyes. The best matchup to watch in this game is Allen Robinson versus Marshawn Lattimore. I definitely think Robinson's going to get the upper hand in that matchup, but it's still going to be fun to watch regardless. I have the Saints here in a blowout over the Bears by at least 2 scores. It's really not going to be close. The next game and the final game of Wildcard Weekend, we have the 6-seed Browns going up to visit the 2-seed AFC North champion Steelers for the 2nd week in a row. The Steelers have been in a major slump these last few weeks of the season. They started 11-0 and everybody thought they were the best team in the league, but then they lost 3 in a row to Washington, Buffalo, and Cincinnati. And then they beat the Colts, coming back from a halftime deficit, which was actually pretty impressive. But then they lost to the Browns last week to finish 12-4. To be fair, they did have a bunch of their starters out, but they did lose that game. The Steelers have played anything but well lately, not to mention the issues going on in their locker room. Meanwhile, the Browns are on fire. They've been very good for the vast majority of the season, and they finished off with a moralizing win over the Steelers just last week. I think they can do it a 2nd week in a row. Their offense is good enough to pick apart that Steelers defense, even though it's very good, and Big Ben is rusty after resting last week, and he hasn't played well in a while anyways. The best matchup to watch here would probably be Nick Chubb, the Browns running back, going up against that Steelers front 7. It's going to be interesting to see whether Pittsburgh will hold up against him this time, or if they're going to let him run all over them again like he did last week. He had 14 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown. If he can do that again, then I would almost guarantee a Browns win. I have the Browns here with the divisional upset for sure. So now we're through with Wildcard Weekend, and that takes us to the divisional round. The top seed from each conference was on bye, waiting for the worst surviving seed from Wildcard Weekend to come visit them. This means that the AFC West champion Kansas City Chiefs would host the Cleveland Browns, and the NFC North champion Green Bay Packers would host the Los Angeles Rams. This would leave the Ravens visiting Buffalo to play the Bills, and the Rams visiting New Orleans to play the Saints. The schedule for the divisional round has yet to be set, obviously, so let's just start in the AFC and talk about that Browns-Chiefs game that I think will happen. The Chiefs are a great team, everyone knows that, there's just no doubt. However, they've struggled greatly these last few games of the regular season. Yes, they won most of their games, they went 14-2, and that Week 17 game is irrelevant since they rested their starters, so really they only lost 1 legitimate game all season. But I'm looking at that Week 16 game against Atlanta. Yes, they won, but they almost lost, and it concerns me. They have a huge problem that's going to come back and bite them sooner than later. Brett Kollmann, another NFL analyst YouTuber, breaks down this problem and explains it nicely. I'll link it down below, you should give it a watch, it's a very good video. This major problem that Brett opened my eyes to is why I have Cleveland pulling out the huge upset. The Chiefs are coming into the playoff with confidence and swagger as the reigning champs. The Browns, who would be coming off a great win against the Steelers the previous week and who haven't been in the playoffs for 18 years, they'd be extremely motivated to win this one. They would be able to exploit that major weakness in the Chiefs' play, and I think they would be able to pull out the huge upset. The matchup to watch in that game would be Tyreek Hill versus Denzel Ward. Two speedy guys facing each other in a postseason game. That would be a fun one to watch. I have Cleveland narrowly getting the upset and moving on to the AFC Championship game. The other AFC Divisional Round matchup would be the Ravens heading to Buffalo to play the Bills. The Bills are an insanely good team, there's no doubt, but this would be a terrible matchup for them. Their run defense is below average statistically, and I don't think they would be able to pick apart the Ravens secondary the way I believe they did to the Colts. The Ravens have one of the best cornerback duos in the league, arguably the best. They have Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters. The Ravens' run defense would also probably be able to hold up and handle whatever the Bills dial up in the run game. Yes, the Bills are a great team, 100%, and it's really sad to see them leave the playoffs this early. Their fans truly deserve a Super Bowl win. They've waited patiently for it. But I think this is just a really bad matchup for the Bills, and I don't think they're going to be able to get through it. The individual matchup to look for in this game would 100% be Stephon Diggs versus Marlon Humphrey. That would be a really good one to watch. Although Diggs would probably get the best of Marlon Humphrey, but I still think it would be a really good matchup to watch. I think the Ravens are going to win this one comfortably just because it's a really bad matchup for the Bills, and so they're going to host the Browns in the AFC Championship next week at M&T Bank Stadium. Now on to the NFC. The Los Angeles Rams would now travel to Green Bay to play the Packers. This game would be a really good game to watch. If you're going to watch any of the games in this weekend, I think it would be this one. The Rams defense versus the Packers offense would be so fun to watch. That Rams pass rush is very good, and with David Bakhtiari out, the Packers O-line takes a huge hit. However, Aaron Donald lines up on the interior, so they could probably eliminate him the same way that the Packers O-line has done to interior defensive linemen all year, but that's Aaron Donald, so it's going to be very difficult. Devontae Adams versus Jalen Ramsey would be the best matchup of the playoffs by far. It would be so interesting to see how Ramsey could hold up against a receiver of Adams' caliber, and vice versa. On the other side of the ball, I think the Packers defense could pretty much neutralize the Rams offense. Jair Alexander can handle the Rams receiving corps, and the Packers took care of Derrick Henry in the Titans run game, so I'm confident they could handle the Rams run game. I think the Packers are going to take this one in a very close game, and they're moving on to the NFC Championship, which they're going to host at Lambeau Field. The next NFC divisional matchup would be the Washington football team going to the New Orleans Saints to play them. The Saints know a lot about the short pass game since Drew Brees and the Saints offense is pretty much structured around that same exact thing. The Saints will be able to handle the Washington offense pretty easily to me. However, watching the Washington defense try to handle the Saints offense would be a totally different story. It would be close, but I'm giving the advantage to the Saints offense. Yes, Washington's pass rush is great, but the Saints have the pieces on the offensive line to take care of business against them. The best individual matchup to watch here would probably be Ryan Ramczyk versus Chase Young. Ramczyk is one of the best tackles in football, and Young is an upcoming superstar pass rusher. After going against Tristan Wirfs in Wildcard Weekend, Young is up for a tougher challenge here against an all-pro tackle. I think the Saints get it done at home against Washington to go to Lambeau and face the Packers. So now it's on to the conference championships. Let's go. In the AFC, Cleveland is visiting Baltimore for the AFC Championship game, and in the NFC, I have New Orleans going to Green Bay to play the Packers. So let's start with the AFC. Cleveland Browns, Baltimore Ravens, a classic AFC North rivalry. Baltimore beat Cleveland twice this season, a blowout in Week 1, 38-6, and a high-scoring shootout on a Monday Night Football Classic, 47-42. The Ravens know how to beat Cleveland. They've done it twice already. The Ravens are on absolute fire with their run game, and Lamar Jackson has been playing insanely well, and he has a chip on his shoulder, and that defense is playing at an elite level. They have the second best scoring defense, second only to the Rams, as I mentioned earlier. Cleveland, however, just beat one of the best teams in the AFC in the Chiefs, and they're feeling themselves. They probably ran all over KC, and they're on a streak, kind of like what the Titans did last year when they beat the Patriots and Ravens and went on to the AFC Championship. It's the same exact thing. However, this is where, sadly, I see Cleveland's playoff run ending. Cleveland Browns are probably very satisfied with how this run went, if it happens, and even if they don't get to the Super Bowl, they have a really bright future, and they can just come back next year even stronger. They finally have a coach, which is a plus, for sure. Baltimore's offense is just too dominant right now. Greg Roman's play calling has improved significantly from earlier in the season when they had that losing streak, and the Ravens' defense has held their last 6 opponents to an average 18 points apiece in the last stretch of the season. That includes that game against Cleveland where they dropped 47 on them. They're hot, and it's going to be very hard for Cleveland to stop them. The best matchup in this game for me is probably Jarvis Landry versus Marlon Humphrey. These two have faced each other plenty of times now, probably 5-6 times already, and because they're in the same division, and they know a thing or two about each other's play style. It's going to be interesting to see how that's going to unfold. I have Baltimore winning in a very close one, and Browns fans will not be disappointed with how that ended for sure. It's off to Tampa for the Baltimore Ravens. Now for the NFC Championship. The New Orleans Saints and Green Bay Packers are two of the best teams in the NFC without a doubt. This would be a fun matchup to watch, and it would be a rematch of the game we saw between them on primetime back in September. The Packers won that game by a score, and I can see them doing it again. Green Bay's offensive line can handle whatever pass rush the Saints have, and their receiving core with Davante Adams can light up the Saints secondary. This game is going to be great for the Packers. They got punched in the mouth by the 49ers in the NFC Championship last year, so this is the chance to redeem themselves. On the other side of the ball, the Saints offense can get pretty much neutralized by the Packers defense to me. A matchup to watch there is Michael Thomas. He's most likely going to be back and healthy by then, and he's going to line up against Jair Alexander. That would be an interesting matchup to watch, and I think a rusty Michael Thomas wouldn't be able to handle Jair Alexander. So, now we have our two Super Bowl contenders, the Baltimore Ravens and the Green Bay Packers. It's off to Tampa. This Super Bowl matchup would be very good without a doubt. A lot of people probably predicted this matchup before the season even started, and reasonably so. These are two of the best teams in the league. Let's go through each matchup of the teams and see who has the overall advantage, starting with the Packers on offense and the Ravens on defense. That Packers offensive line has arguably been the best in the league this year. Maybe the second best, but they're definitely top 3. And against the Ravens defensive line, the Ravens don't have many good pass rushers, so I'm going to give the advantage to the Packers there. The Packers definitely would be able to handle the Ravens pass rush. Now, the Packers wide receivers versus the Ravens DBs. You would have Davante Adams going against Marlon Humphrey, and Davante definitely has the upper hand in that matchup, but overall across the board, I think it's about even when you take all things considered, when you consider the rest of the Packers receiving core faced with the rest of the Ravens secondary. I think it's a pretty even matchup, although Davante Adams would definitely be a huge target for them to going up against Marlon Humphrey there. Now, the Ravens' run defense would probably be able to handle whatever the Packers run at them, but there's not really much of a reason for the Packers to run on the Ravens anyways, since the Packers could probably dot up the Ravens with that pass offense of theirs. Now, on the other side of the ball, you got the Ravens offensive line and the Packers D-line. The Packers D-line really doesn't have much besides Kenny Clark. I mean, you do have Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith on the edges, but I think the Ravens offensive line overall can handle that pass rush. It's not much to worry about. But the Packers DBs and the Ravens wide receivers, the Ravens really don't have any good wide receivers besides Marquise Brown, who's played pretty well so far, but Jair Alexander would absolutely eliminate Marquise Brown from the whole equation. So the Ravens wide receivers would get shut down by the Packers DBs. And the Ravens run offense, we all know the Ravens run offense, it's statistically the best in the league. And against the Packers run defense, they would definitely be able to get something there. But since the Packers DBs could handle the Ravens receivers one-on-one, I think I'm going to give the advantage overall to the Packers, since the Packers could just stack the box and try and deal with the Ravens rush offense that way. But you know that Greg Roman is going to have something planned for that. Regardless, I'm still taking the Packers in that matchup, and overall, I think the Packers are the better team here. They're going to take the W. They have the better pass offense. They have the defensive capacity to handle the Ravens. I think this is going to go to the Packers. The Packers are Super Bowl 55 champions, and Aaron Rodgers wins Super Bowl MVP. He gets his second ring of his career, and that is a great way to end your career with the Packers. Maybe move on, go somewhere else, or just end your career there, period. But I still think Aaron Rodgers has a few more years of good football left in him. Thank you all for watching. Please hit the subscribe button below, and if you disagree with anything I said, or if you have suggestions for future videos, please feel free to comment down below, and I'll see y'all in the next video.